Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel Stuck in the Mud. I'm Kirsty and today I'm going to be talking about medication. Should I take medication for my OCD and anxiety? Is a question a lot of sufferers have, because when you're going through something so challenging as obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety symptoms, we are oftentimes offered to take antidepressants. And it's a really, really personal decision. And I'm not going to talk today about whether you should or you shouldn't, because like I say, it's ultimately a choice that you have to make. But I will talk about my experiences with antidepressants and medication that I have been prescribed over the years while dealing with OCD and anxiety. Because I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder in my 20s, although I had actually suffered from being a very young child, about age 5. But I was never on any medication until my adult years. And I was also diagnosed with GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder. So this was all in my 20s. And since then, I have been on various different medications, some which were very effective and some not so much. But again, it all is personal to you, because someone could have a really great experience with a certain medication and you might not. And that is because we are all biologically different and we will react differently to medications. Although some generally are tolerated really well among a lot of people. And then there might be a small number of people where it just doesn't agree with you. And also, during different times of your life, you may find that certain medications work and then they don't, because it's also been that case with me where I have been on a medication that's been working great for me. And then years later, it just doesn't seem to have that effect on me anymore. It doesn't work the same as it always did. That is something I've also experienced. So it can be biological changes as well. Maybe you are going through the menopause, perimenopause, anything like that. It could be that you are on a medication that you've been on for a long time. This was my experience, where it just didn't seem to work that well for me anymore. Now I'm in my 40s and maybe biologically things are changing and it just doesn't seem to have the same effects on me. So I've had a very broad experience with antidepressants and how effective some have been and how little effects some have actually had on me, or even some more adverse reactions. So I'm going to be talking all about that today. Please remember to subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. This enables me to produce more content like this, and hopefully I can help someone out there, because it's something that I've dealt with for a long, long time, almost 40 years, and I really genuinely understand how debilitating OCD and anxiety can be. And I really hope I can help someone to find their way out of that and live a fulfilling life, because that's what we deserve. We all deserve that. So on to today's topic, which is medication and my experiences so far. I started out many, many years ago. I was given fluoxetine, which is also known as Prozac. This is widely prescribed by GPs and general practitioners for obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, and many other issues as well, panic attacks, things like that. So I was on this for a few years and it was generally well received by myself and I tolerated it quite well. It did reduce my anxiety symptoms and my obsessive compulsive disorder rituals, physical rituals, mental rituals, they did decrease somewhat. I found after a few years, it seemed to have less effect on me. I also noticed with the increase in my dose, it helped a little bit, but not significantly. But I did have some very good years on this medication and it didn't really have so many bad side effects, because side effects can vary greatly between different people. They list an enormous amount of side effects, and that can be quite anxiety inducing in itself. So when we're deciding to go on a medication, this can really affect our decision to whether we actually do start taking it or not, because these side effects, although they may happen, for most people like myself, they will hardly recognize any of them, and we will just go through taking the medication with very little effect. I didn't notice a whole deal on fluoxetine, I'll be honest. I did notice I became a little more numb. So emotionally, I may not have felt as upset or emotional all the time, and crying, that reduced. However, the positive effects of it were great. You know, like I say, I reduced my physical rituals by a great deal. I also found that the mental ruminations, the intrusive thoughts also decreased. But I was also, and this is very important to say, I was having the medication alongside my psychologist. So I was also getting that therapy, that talking therapy, whether it be exposure and response prevention, CBT, metacognitive therapy. I've tried many different ones throughout the years. So it's always thought that medication alongside therapy like this is great, because you can really reduce those symptoms you're having from the anxiety, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder, rituals. They can reduce significantly, especially alongside those therapies, those talking therapies. So yeah, my experiences with that were quite good. However, after some time, I found that it didn't have the same effects. And people often talk about medication pooping out on them. It just means it doesn't really work for them anymore. And that may have been what happened to me with fluoxetine. So I was then tried on citalopram. I wasn't on it for a great deal of time. And it's a mistake I've made over the years where I've taken myself off antidepressants, and that should never be done without the guidance of a GP, general practitioner. You should always make someone aware, or your psychologist, psychiatrist, whoever, that you're going to start reducing medication. That is really the best way to come off these medications, is to reduce gradually. But I am guilty of it, and I know many people are, of just stopping these medications. Maybe you started forgetting to take them like myself, and then just gradually you just came to a complete stop. But it's not the best way to do it. I found that with different medications. Some medications were easier than others to come off of, but it's widely recommended that you don't do that. You don't just stop, you actually gradually reduce. So yeah, that's another one I had when I was going through a really rough time. I did try sertraline, which didn't really have a great deal of positive effects for me. I didn't really like being on it. That's a very personal thing to me. Maybe it just didn't agree with me. So I was then in a really, really dark place. And this is where a big change for me came. And I was recommended clomipramine, or you may know it by the name Anfranil. And it is, wow, it was a really life-changing time for me, because I was in a very, very dark place. It wasn't that I didn't want to be here, because I think most people don't with OCD and anxiety. They just want the thoughts to stop. They want the intrusions to stop. They want the rituals to stop. It's not that we don't want to be here. I more than anything want to be here. But I didn't want to live my life suffering the way I was. So it was recommended to me, and I tried it, and wow, it really did have a very positive effect on me. I'm not going to lie, because it's an older drug. It had some side effects like dry mouth. I would often, when I first started taking it, I would tremble, my hands would tremble, but they were very short-lived in reality. I didn't really suffer with those for a long time. The dry mouth was quite kind of ongoing, but it didn't significantly make me want to stop. It's something I tolerated over time. So, but it's an older drug. It's classified as an old type drug, but it's also, many would consider the gold standard in OCD treatment, because it really, really did reduce my levels of anxiety, my level of panic. It also reduced those relationship with my thoughts. I would be able to dismiss these thoughts very quickly. They would pop into my head, and because I believe of the medication, I was able to let go of them much easier. But let's not forget, I was also having talking therapies, metacognitive therapy alongside this while I was taking the clomipramine. So I felt the medication did make me let go of the thoughts much easier, but I was also doing the talking therapies with my psychologist, the metacognitive therapy, so it was much easier to let them go, I think, with the combination of the two therapies, medication and actual talking therapy, to the degree of metacognitive therapy or ERP, or many people have different types of CBT as well. So yeah, I would say that was a real life changer for me when I started on that. And it worked for a very long time. I took it for a long time. And then I did come off it at some point when I was feeling much, much better. I gradually came off that. And for a long time, I was medication free, and that was brilliant. But then I had my fifth baby, and it was a really, really tough time for me after that. I was older. I was almost 42 when I had my daughter, my last daughter. And so I think there was a number of biological changes as well I was going through, like with my age. I believe, although it's not confirmed, that I have been in perimenopause and things are changing. So maybe that medication didn't work as well for me. But I did have quite a severe reaction when trying to go back on that again. But I want to stress that I think it's because I had the pregnancy with no medication, and also my body was just different. I think biologically I was different after I had my fifth daughter, probably because of reducing hormones. Things were up and down. I think in perimenopause, everything can be just very much like this. And I think trying to kind of level those out with the old medication I was on, it didn't really work for me. And I felt very emotional, and it was very hard to control my emotions, which was really odd to me because I found with the medication before it worked really well. But I do want to stress though that, we often, and I know I'm guilty of it myself, is reading reviews of medication, and it's very easy to persuade yourself that you're not going to try it because of someone else's experience. I've done it myself, and then you may hear a lot of good reviews about something else, but then you go to try it and it doesn't work as well for you, because we are all different. And I need to stress that, because I think it's easy for us to be persuaded and, into the decisions we make. And really it's very, very personal, because everyone's going to respond differently to medication. However, generally, I know that clomipramine has been received well for obsessive compulsive disorder, but everybody, again, is different. But I know generally it's considered the gold standard in treatment, although it is a very much older drug, and so side effects may be more so, but not necessarily. Like I say, everyone was different. I did have to go through some monitoring on it. It was to monitor my heart, which was fine. I had to have some blood tests because my prolactin levels did grow while I was on clomipramine at one stage, but they did actually come back into level themselves. So that was just something that was monitored by my GP. But it was great. It was great for a long time. So after my pregnancy, I was then very skeptical about clomipramine because I'd had such a bad reaction to it. So I did then try Effexa, which is venlafaxine, and I was on quite a high dose of that. And generally, I was okay. I've been okay with that. I've had very, very little side effects from taking it, although I do know when I haven't taken it, if I forgot to take it at the same time every day, I can generally feel quite a bit unwell. Like I'll have quite a bad headache and feel a bit out of sorts. So as long as I'm taking it on time, I generally feel okay with that. And I'm still on that to this day, although funnily enough, I've been introduced with a small amount of clomipramine because I felt like I was still having some residual symptoms of anxiety and OCD on it. But I've kept to a very small dose of clomipramine alongside it. And these two are generally not prescribed together. It was something my psychiatrist recommended to try. And so far, so good. It's been fine. What I will say, though, is that medication augmentation is something that It has to be done by a psychiatrist generally, because mixing drugs together can have effects, and some just shouldn't be put together. I know commonly venlafaxine isn't prescribed with clomipramine, but it was something she was willing to try at a very small dose. So yeah, it's very important to state that mixing medications should only be done when a doctor says so. So this was my experience. I'd be very interested to hear about how you have felt about this. Maybe some medications have worked well for you, maybe some not. And maybe you're just very wary about trying medication for your anxiety and OCD. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are so much more. We all deserve to live that happy, fulfilling life. We deserve it. And to have these thoughts take over and really limit what we do every day is heartbreaking. So this is my goal for these videos, is to help you guys and express how things have helped me over the years, because if I can help one person, that would be amazing. So thanks for watching today, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.